I was a little depressed today thinking about how many listeners do we have? I'm happy for the ones we have. But then I thought, how many do we have that we don't know, like by name, that we've met?
Yeah.
And I know of one person. I know of two people who listen to the show who I don't know.
How do you find that out?
They wrote to me with a question.
Oh,
yeah.
Great. That's awesome.
One, it was the Misfits of Science episode from last year. And one was someone who, you know what? Now I can't really talk about it because I'm like, what if they did like it and they listened to this show, which is, whenever later from the last one, because I was just about to trash them, which is rude.
You can't use this, though, because if only two people have reached out to you, both of them will think you were about to trash them, and that would be no good.
Well, the one who talked about Misfits of Science knows that it wasn't them because I mentioned them. It's the one who talked about Topic Redacted that would think that. There's probably more than two people that I've even heard from, actually. I threw that in there to throw them off the scent.
Hey, everyone ever, and welcome to 20th Century Popcast, where we try to understand the present by living in the past. I am Bob Canning.
And I am Tim Blevins, and I think I liked what you just did. I laughed a little, but I turned away from the microphone.
Did I do it wrong? I thought I did it right.
I think you did it right. I was caught up in how you said popcast, which now I'm like, already I think my mind has altered how you said it. So I would have to go back and listen to it. But thanks for opening it. Yes, we're back. And you're back, and I'm back. We're on the same show, which is...
yes.
It feels a little out of sorts because we haven't been weekly. We did some in December. Took a couple weeks off. We did that X-Files episode, but then last week's episode, by the time this goes up, wasn't something we did together. And then tonight, people don't need to know this, but I'm going to say it anyways. We're going to attempt to record 2 episodes, so we're catching up with what we're doing.
That's right. Yeah, we've gotten through the hump of the holidays, and we'll get back into the swing of it.
Holiday hump. Did you hump for the holidays? Is that something you did? Was that a gift? Did you get a book of coupons that allowed that? You did.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was going to go anywhere. Again, you might as well use her name because you have revealed a lot about this partner, spouse of yours.
Yeah, the spouse. Yeah, she is a very busy woman.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't listen to a lot of the podcast, unfortunately.
She listened to any?
She's listened to a few.
Out of curiosity, which few?
Oh gosh, let me see if I can recall.
And do it in real time.
The first 3 for sure.
So it's been a year.
The Huey Lewis and the News one.
Yeah.
I think she listened to the one with Brent because she's a fan of Brent.
So we need more Brent on the show.
More saxophone.
She
keeps saying more Brent.
Okay.
So whatever I say about her here, I so far I don't really have to worry about it, except for her name.
Well, I would think the humping part maybe. I mean, I guess that's healthy.
I don't think that's not gonna bother her.
No. Okay.
No. Yeah, it's healthy, like you're saying.
Or it can be. There's ways to do it wrong. There's ways to do it injuriously, I imagine.
I think continuing to talk about it might be the wrong thing to do.
Okay. That makes sense. Right. That's sensible. But here we are, our second show together. The show's been running. By the way, by the time this airs again, it'll have been. I like saying that phrase because it really makes it feel like we're prepared by the time the show airs, or it makes it sound like we're not. Like by the time this airs, who knows what the world will look like? Maybe we won't have Hawaii, but at least as we're recording the show, this podcast has been running for a year now. Actually, I think a year and 2 weeks. Year and a week by the time it goes up because, yes, a year and a week. It's weird, too, because the website makes it look like a bunch of episodes came out later in the month, but looking back, they did. So that's interesting, as is this sentence. Yeah, we've been around. So, I mean, how are you feeling? Because last year, some of our strongest episodes, I think, came before we were performing for the microphone. But, how are you feeling about the show existing, being a thing now for 365 or so days?
I'm proud of us for staying on top of it, for continuing it. Lesser men would have quit long ago. Mm-hmm. And we are not lesser men.
We're not lesser men. No, that's true. We're not Leathermen either. But
no.
I'm happy with most of it. I'm sure there's been some duds through there. I think there might have been a few downers. Can you think of an episode that if you were to say, hey, you want to hear our worst episode? And then would you be able to tell someone what that is? Like, similar to the space episode of X-Files. Because I have one. I actually know of one that I think, and maybe I'll put it in the show notes, is our worst episode. Least favorite.
What's
episode.
Our worst episode?
I think we did an episode early on where, and we recorded it during a rainstorm. And I don't know why we're having this conversation. We have plenty to talk about. But just to unsell anyone who maybe suddenly sold on the show and thought, hey, because we were talking before about how we want a wider audience. So I thought what better way to solidify that by admitting we have some shows in the can, so to speak. We did a Brady Bunch Exorcist episode that I tried to re-listen to recently. And that goes nowhere.
We haven't gone back to that. That was our Before We Were Born pop episode, right?
Yeah, which is a fine topic because there are plenty of things. Planet of the Apes, Blazing Saddles, Mary Tyler Moore, some of the Commandments. I mean, all these things happened before we were born, if they actually happened in the case of some of those things. But this particular episode, we have kind of an interesting Brady Bunch conversation because I think you connected with Peter. There's some family stuff there. I like it when the show kind of goes into personal past a little bit and explores that as is the goal. But
you like today then?
Should we just do that? Should I not trash the section of that episode that I was going to about The Exorcist that I was going to talk about?
No, finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say, we do the Brady Bunch thing, and then we segue into talking about The Exorcist. Very, very weekly. I think we do a little game in the middle that we've never gone back to, which was Brady or Belvedere, a segment I would like to return to where we try to guess is the plot line from the Brady Bunch or Belvedere. But The Exorcist...
I made that game up on the spot, by the way. That wasn't...
You don't have to tell me that. Because I know that it was apparent.
I know that. But it was telling
fun.
Our new listeners who weren't around for that,
who aren't going to go back to hear this episode because I'm going to
tell you.
That
might be part of why it wasn't such a great episode. But continue.
I think that was strong. I think the 25 minutes that we spent just saying, and it's just scary, because it's scary. And it's just scary because all that stuff's scary, man. Because that could be scary. Like if that happened to you. I don't know if this was said in there along the lines. Yeah, if that happened to you, that would be scary. And what would happen to you part would be like if a hell spawn, a demon, something that maybe or may not doesn't exist, entered your body and started your skin burning and made you float and hover and threw up on someone you knew and made you implement yourself like crucifix. Yes, that we can guarantee that would be scary.
Scary. Yeah.
I'm talking about it right now. Now imagine that, but for 20 minutes, that was that episode.
Wow. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that episode.
You don't have to, but yes, if you want to, I would say it'd be nice to start. I think we try to do this in the show notes every week on the website. Boy, this is a slow start. We'll get into it in a minute, everyone. I think what I'm thinking is that, I want to start directing people to the website more. The website does a pretty good job of, I think, recommending past episodes that might be relevant to this episode and giving a little list of I'm showing it's a website which is 20. I'm so bad at this. I'm bad at this.
No, no, you're not. It's 20popcast.com.
I was bad at that.
No, it's a fantastic website.
It's a good website.
Okay, it's a medium.
Okay, that's a perfect way. It's an okay website. It's got all the past episodes there, links, so you can listen to them.
You do a great job giving little bonus links. It's a lot of fun. I go to it a lot. You don't think I do, but I'm there a lot.
No. I mean, I guess you're half the traffic, so thank you.
That's probably true.
But yeah, where was I going with that? I don't know. That's probably good for the end of the show. Why don't we start the show? And I say it like that in case you want to cut any of this out. What now that we're back together, kind of talking, where was I going with this? I guess, the Brady Bunch portion of that episode that I'm telling people not to listen to. Again, I enjoyed it because it very much did kind of tie into your childhood, at least. And from that, I thought we could segue into a topic for today. Bob, do you want to do that?
Sure. Yeah, we're going to go back to our childhood, our high school years, and talk about something that I think is very near to both of us: the music that we would listen to in our high school years. We both absolutely enjoy having music playing. I enjoy it playing absolutely all the time.
Me too.
And sure. I was the same. I was the same in high school too.
I was too, and I think high school. What we're doing, we're going to talk about our favorite. Each of us are going to kind of list our three favorite albums from high school. Junior, senior, kind of what our most favorite albums are. And I'm saying albums. I know they're probably compact discs or cassettes. I don't know.
Cassettes.
They're cassettes for
cassettes.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
See, for me, and then what we can jump into it this way, the ones I'm going to mention, we're still calling them albums, but the ones I'm going to mention, they're all compact discs because there was a shift in how I interacted with music, probably around 11th grade, where, I had cassettes, before I had a CD player, but they were all movie soundtracks. And then I think maybe, there were some comedy albums. There was a lot of Weird Al albums, Blues Brothers albums, but, it was very selective. And then, I would listen to the radio and I would tape things off the radio. But when it came time for compact discs, that's when I started reaching out to bands, and the easier route to go was kind of like, well, I got to get the Aerosmith, I got to get the Led Zeppelin, I got to get the Doors, kind of stinking my fingers into what was popular for my brother, and therefore I liked it. But something that happened with CDs was, since I got a CD player, but no one in my house had CDs, I had to build up a collection. So I started going out and buying music, and I wasn't someone who really wanted to buy music on CD that I already had on cassette. That did happen eventually, but I was avoiding it at first. So that was sort of either forced me or allowed me to start exploring music as a whole, the bigger scope of music, things that weren't John Williams and the Back to the Future soundtrack and Dan Aykroyd's albums. I was finding music, and high school was important to me because I found some bands in high school that I think really impacted the music I pursued as time went on.
Yeah, that was an experience that I didn't have until later.
So what were you listening to in high school then?
Well, prior to these three, and the reason I picked these three is because I guess it was similar to that, because these were sort of departures from what I was listening to. But I was just a radio guy. I was a radio guy, and whatever my mom and my aunt had playing, which was usually Kenny Rogers or Barbra Streisand or Liza Minnelli.
And I think we've talked about on the show. 1/3 of that, by the way, I really like. I'm a huge fan of Liza Minnelli. Did you like the music that was your mom and your aunt's music, or was it on and you were hoping you did?
Yeah, I mean, because it was what I was familiar with. So I did like it, and I do like it. I mean, it's not something I go back to all that often, but there are bits and pieces there. I mean, my mom totally wore out her Liza with a Z live concert album. I knew every word of that thing. I could sing it front to back. Not well, but I could.
That's kind of like a show tuney album, right? Liza Minnelli's kind of like old standards or show tunes. Did that?
Yeah, she's putting on a show too. It's like she's talking to the audience and just putting on a one woman show kind of thing.
Now, is that what you thought music was? Like the music you started to pursue? Is there any sort of a segue from Liza Minnelli begot this, which begot this, which got you to whatever you're gonna say? Like what got you to something that wasn't your aunt's music or your mother's music?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of friends and what they were listening to. My grandparents and my aunt who lived together getting cable and having MTV.
So you did.
And
okay, so you had MTV.
I didn't have it in my house. We didn't have cable in my house for a long time. But whenever I was at my aunt's, I would watch MTV. I think MTV was really the thing that kind of opened me up to different things. But I think subconsciously, I looking at my first selection here, subconsciously, I can see how Liza Minnelli may have played a part in one of these albums, or just the genre of music that I enjoy still.
So yeah, we're going to talk about very specifically. These are probably our three favorite albums of later high school high school years. What is this first one? Why don't we start with that? Because one, I'd like to hear the segue from Minnelli, but two, we can start talking about it.
Absolutely. It may come as no surprise to any of our fans and avid listeners. First one is Harry Connick Jr., "We Are in Love."
I know you so well. I can tell by the sound of your voice if you're really in love with me.
I think this is his third album, if we count the When Harry Met Sally soundtrack.
Oh, let's count them out loud. What are the other two? No, but no, that makes sense. I mean, Harry Connick Jr., how would you describe him as a musician, at least back then, not so much as the talk show host Will and Grace ex-husband?
Yeah, no, he was sort of the big band revivalist. He came from New Orleans. He's a piano man. Actually, his first couple albums were just him and piano covering old standards. This was like his first kind of big debut where it's his own original tracks, his own original songs, some covers in there as well. But it was like his big debut.
When was it released? Do you know when it first came out?
We Are in Love was released in 1990.
And
July 3rd.
When did you come across it?
July 5th, perhaps.
Oh, so
pretty soon.
When it was brand new, you found
I was already aware of them. Yeah, definitely.
How did you come to it? Like, I guess the Liza Minnelli section.
Well, there's Liza Minnelli, but I knew of him from our favorite When Harry Met Sally.
I mean, sorry, I don't know why the grunt.
Really? I think you're just tired of talking about it on this podcast.
We haven't this year, so
2 weeks in. But yeah, no, that, and I was also in high school, 1990. I think I was at that year in the vocal jazz choir at my school. Mm-hmm. I was in chorus. That was one of my classes, and then I did vocal jazz. Was like an after school thing, and so I was in that, and those other friends were aware of him, and it was pretty. He was kind of there. It wasn't like this hidden thing that I had to seek out. He was there.
Kind of shared. Was he popular? Like, was he radio hits? Was he considered cool? Like, where did Harry Connick Jr. stand in 1990?
I think he was VH1 popular.
Yes, because I saw him on VH1 quite a lot. So you're right.
Yeah, but not radio play popular.
But kids in your school were listening.
Unless you were listening to a particular. Kids in my circle of vocal jazz were listening to them. Mm-hmm. Like the football players weren't listening to Harry Connick Jr., but the guys in musical theater were listening to Harry Connick Jr.
Was there a setup in your school or any insecurity on your part of liking this album? Like, was there anything where this had to be secretive?
No. In fact, and I might have mentioned this in a previous podcast, because we were in vocal jazz and we were musical theater types, we were always singing. In our circle. I mean, certainly we knew when not to sing, I guess. And so, we would, there were three of us that memorized some of these songs and would sing them. We would try and do harmonies and stuff. We weren't fantastic, but we had fun doing it, and the girls liked it, so we did it.
But there are plenty.
To Harry Connick.
To Harry Connick Jr. Why that? I guess because you're in musical theater. There must have been big musical theater soundtracks. Jesus Christ Superstar, Miss Saigon, something that everyone was singing. There is Liza Minnelli, like you said. What was the draw that made this the one? Like you're saying, it's one of your favorites. So why?
Yes. For me, it's because it was modern. Mm-hmm. It was new. It wasn't something that other people might have had a history with. This was new to me. This was new to everybody. He wasn't really our age, but he was relatively our age. He was
like twice in his 20s, wasn't he? I guess
he was only in his 20s. He was like 24, God, 25.
He's still only that ahead of us?
He's about that age, yeah. And he was like, from my perspective, he was a cool cat. He could sing, he could play piano, he had that hair. He was attractive in that goofy looking guy, kind of attractive. Looks good in a suit.
To be honest, I think he definitely had a look. Was that something new? I mean, I guess you knew that from TV and stuff. Like, was that part of the picture? Like, there was this package of, not package, but like there was there was this look and this class to him that you're not getting from, I've got my jeans like Springsteen, or I've got my mascara like Susie of the Banshees. Like, was there something fashion about him that attracted you to it? Like the album, the look, or something?
Yeah. I mean, he was wearing his suits. His hair was slicked. He was definitely something I wasn't, and I was drawn to that.
Now, do you remember getting the album itself?
I can't remember. I have this very distinct memory, and I can't remember if it's the same day I bought it, but I remember putting the tape into my grandfather's tape player in the car as we drove away from the mall. Now, I can't remember if I just had the tape with me or if that was the day I actually bought it. But his complaint, I remember this, was that the way the songs progressed, there was like the first one was this loud big band, big horns. The second one was more quiet, some strings and piano. Then the next one was loud again. And we kept having to turn it up and turn it down. And that really annoyed the hell out of him. It's like, just decide on a volume.
God, and this sounds horrible. I'm glad he's not here to hear the podcast. I think that we have the same issue with levels here at times. But that's true. I don't know why this strikes me as weird. Getting music back then. Did you have a Walkman, or was it like you get your music?
Yeah, I had a Walkman. I had a boombox and a Walkman. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't think I had a tape deck in my mom's car, but my grandparents had a tape deck in the car. So
now, when you bought it, did you know what it sounded like? Did you know the songs on it, or were you nervous? Like, I would get this way. I guess I should have said that first. But like, was it nervous to be putting this right in to hear it for the first time with other people around? Was that nerve wracking?
No, not this. I knew enough about Harry Connick that I knew it wasn't going to be terrible, and I knew it wasn't going to offend my grandparents or my aunt if she was in the car. I think it was just my grandparents. I thought they'd like it, actually, Mm-hmm. So no, I wasn't nervous. I was kind of excited to hear what the next song would be. Like I have this memory of knowing the opening song, which is the title track, "We Are in Love." So then every song after that was new to me at the same time that it was new to my grandparents. So I was excited to hear what the next ones would sound like, but I wasn't nervous about it.
Was he on the radio, like pop radio?
I don't think so. I listened to 93Q out of Syracuse, New York, and there was
some reason, but yes, I did.
There was never any Harry Connick Jr. played on that station. I'm sure that there are classical music or jazz stations where he was played, but not on pop radio. Which is too bad because a lot of his songs are very poppy.
Was there a single or were there singles off this album?
I have no idea. I didn't seek out singles and I didn't hear it on the radio. I would imagine the title track.
You like this album as a full album?
I do. I've listened to it front to back. It would be a walk into school tape. I would often I would.
School? Big band of Mulberry strut in the school.
Absolutely. And we would. I would definitely wear it out like at musical theater because you'd go and they'd be setting up the stage and you'd just be sitting in the auditorium waiting for your rehearsal time or whatever. And so that's what I was listening to. That and one of the other tapes here that we'll mention later.
And was there any connection to what he was singing about, or was it more just he's singing?
Oh yeah,
there was.
Oh yeah.
What's that then? Because I don't think of him. It's funny you say he was only like 7 or 10 years older or whatever than us. I just thought of him as an adult, like When Harry Met Sally adult, but covering these old songs. So I honestly, while I knew who he was and I liked It Had to Be You, I did not care for him that much in high school because I was like, sure. I can't relate to this. Sure. What is this he's doing? I like that he plays piano, but what could you relate to in these big band sounding standards in 1990?
Dude, he's singing about love. That's all he's singing about. Love and falling in love and meeting that special someone and staying with her or losing her. Yeah,
I mean, surely there were other bands doing that. You have other singers that can touch you. Why is Harry Connick Jr. in his songs, which again, I really feel like it's just striking me out because I'm like, wasn't he aimed at our parents? Maybe not, but I didn't know kids walking around my high school who had it. People maybe had the When Harry Met Sally soundtrack, which I get, but because it's connected to the movie. But there's something about these songs on their own that didn't jive with me, that didn't connect with me. And so I'm just, what was it that it's this? And it's not like I've got to put on, What It Takes by Aerosmith or Fallen Angel by Poison. Why is it this in 1990?
I think we probably alluded to it earlier in that prior to this, I was listening to Barbra Streisand and my grandparents' Glenn Miller Orchestra.
But did you find love in those? Did you find they were talking about true love in those albums?
No, I didn't find that, but I found the sound. I found the big band sound, the orchestral sound, and I liked it. It was my comfort sound. It was comfort music because that was my home. That's what I would be hearing while I laid on the rug playing with my Matchbox cars. So to hear it coming from someone, again, sort of my generation, who's sort of hip, who's kind of this, underground jazz musician compared to the Bruce Hornsby's on 93Q. I've got, Harry Connick Junior.
This is what I'm looking
my
for.
guy.
There was something different about him. He's not Bruce Hornsby or the Mike and the Mechanics or the Steve Winwood. He's apparently at the time, I think you're saying he's the Sonic Youth of jazz.
He is. There you go. We got there.
So that's striking you. So there's something to that. I mean, I guess I get that. And this one stuck out from all the other albums. I mean, is it, here we are almost 30 years on. Do you still listen to this album? Do you put it in still?
I don't put it in because that's just not how I listen to music anymore. I don't have the tape deck. I don't have the tape, so I wouldn't need the tape deck. But it's loaded into my iTunes. It's loaded onto my iPhone, and it is something that just in my mix of listening to songs at random, it's there and they come up and the songs come up. And I will point out too, one of my favorite songs off the album is called Heavenly. It's the last track on side 1 or A. I'm not sure what he called it, and it's basically an a cappella song. And it's just a cute little song. It's cute. It's a cute little song about the man in the moon falling in love with the girl in the world. And I have, since my children were babies, sung that to them as their lullaby. My one-man version of that. I don't sing it as often as I did, but first 3-4 years of their life, they heard it every day.
So it is ingrained. That's nice. That's kind of passing along kind of thing. I would not have expected that out of this album.
What's your first album that you want to talk about?
Like I said, with CDs, the ones I'm going to talk about, high school and all, they're compact discs. So I was discovering music, and one of the main albums I think of whenever I think about high school is an album called FODDER. FODDER by the band Ned's Atomic Dustbin. Do you know them? Do you know this band?
I do. I didn't listen to them. I don't listen to them much, but I know the band.
Yeah, they're like a British, I guess recently I've read they're considered shoegaze rock or whatever. They were this British band. They have 2 bass guitars. They were kind of noisy for me, and I heard them or discovered them or whatever in that way that I think we've talked about before. The album came out in 1991, but I would have come across it in 1992, and that's thanks entirely to Jason Kratt, this kid in my high school, this resident Motorhead patched leather jacket greaser guy who I happened to be friends with at the school store. We had a school store, and my tucked in shirt friend Rob Noased ran the school store, I think. And it was similar to like when we saw 3 O'Clock High. It was like we sold candy and we sold papers, and for some reason it was open in the morning. I would always get there early, and Jason Kratt got there early too, and somehow we hung out in that scenario. And he was one of these people who are just like, why does he like me? Why are we hanging out? And we would talk and stuff, and what we would talk about would be his music, and he exposed me to music. He was this sort of scary punk again with long hair, but for some reason that I couldn't comprehend, we got along. And if he wasn't talking Ramones Mania, he was talking the Pixies or that one Misfits song I knew at the time. But somehow he got this Ned's Atomic Dustbin album into my hands. He actually may have had it on cassette. I don't remember, but I heard tracks off of it, and I think partially it was just the name, and the look of it. Like the look of the logo it looks like a radiation warning. It had nuclear fears looks to it. It's that 3-pointed, nuclear waste warning symbol with their name on it. And, it wasn't something I had ever seen. It wasn't a band I heard people talk about. And on top of that, I liked the music. So, after he let me after he lent it to me, I think one of the reasons this album strikes me is this was one of the first albums I rushed out to buy. I have to go find this. I have to get to the CD and track down that, or the CD store, record store, track down that long box at the Eastbrook Mall and purchase the CD, which I did. And I only had a knowledge of a couple of songs, and I brought it home, and it's just no one else had this album. I mean, Jason did, but my closest friends, who I would share, like classic Queen or Aerosmith or pretty soon Pearl Jam, they didn't have this that I knew of, and I didn't talk to them about this. But I listened to it, and it just kind of washed over me and was insular to me because, again, it wasn't something I didn't see this kid Jason Pratt a lot. So it wasn't like I was sharing this with people. I wasn't telling people to listen to it. It was just something that I got to listen to. I didn't talk about. So it kind of just existed like in my bones. And it was probably the first album to really do that because it was a full album and it was mine, mine to kind of own and feel and experience. So it was a very private kind of thing.
Did you ever want to share it, or did you just enjoy like how much of it was just for you?
I'm sure I put it on mixtapes when I made for people because there were songs again that I loved that I wanted to share, but it was kind of like sharing like, and here's a song I found. You're not going to know this band. I felt like this is the song that'll represent me on this mixtape that has Going to California by Led Zeppelin or, Light My Fire by The Doors. And then here's Gray Cell Green by Ned's Atomic Dustbin. Here's Kill Your Television or Happy. And I mean, I wasn't, I was playing it in my room. It was sort of this introduction to holding yourself off with music, and the band and the songs kind of play to that. They play to this misanthropic, like mindset that I was forging. All their songs are kind of about falling short, having a self-awareness of faults and being judgmental of yourself. And even though the lyrics didn't always make sense, they were nihilistic enough to be appealing. They were rebellious enough for me to feel like they were important. And, they were a little bit, they were kind of just feeding into just not finding comfort in the concept of comfort. And I think to have a whole album like that meant a lot to me.
Were the lyrics, did they connect with you too? Or was it just this overall vibe kind of thing?
Parts of the lyrics did. To this day, like the song Gray Cell Green, I don't know what all of that is about, but I do know that there are select lyrics in it that I scrawled on my desk. Like my parents still have the desk I grew up with, and there were just lyrics from this album written all over it. There were key words, phrases. There's a song called Kill Your Television, which was like this mind-blowing battle cry to me, against television, which who the fuck am I to yell against television? I love television. And this song was saying that it was trash. These things we like are trash and waste. And, that kind of hit me. And it was a little bit of like, am I a phony? Is the song thinking I'm a phony? It's interesting to me to have that feeling. And then I'm listening to it. So someone listening to me listen to this to know that this is how I feel. Like it was this shape of an opinion sort of thing. Yeah, there were plenty of lyrics in these songs that just spoke to this whole, you don't get me, stop telling me how to live, how to be. Here's this, and I'm sure that was in other music. It's heartbreak music, soulful music all has it. But to me, this was my introduction to sort of isolation in a way. And it was great because it was a full album that I wasn't hearing anywhere. So it was mine. That's what I noticed with a lot of music is like, it's mine.
Yeah. It's something special when it's a discovery, even if it's out there and they've got loads of fans, but you are discovering it on your own for yourself. That is a special thing. Do you still listen to it? Do you go back to it?
I do. I mean, I don't listen to the full album, but then again, I think I stopped listening to the full album when I was young. But no, the opening 5 songs of that play constantly. I mean, Gray Cell Green, the song Gray Cell Green with its beating like double bass and its single chord little solo, or if you even call it a solo at the end, that I play a lot. That I probably listen to every week. And the other songs I go back to, I listened to the whole album just earlier today in preparation, and I was surprised at how much I remember of each song. Yeah. Like those lyrics are in my head. So yeah, I definitely go back to it. Well, I count it as one of my favorite albums, and it's not something I've ever really lost track of. What's the next of your albums there?
The next one, I kind of went back and forth between which album I was going to highlight, but the next one is from the band Living Colour.
I was hoping it would be.
Not the TV show, but the band. Now, why were you hoping?
When you arrived at Emerson, our freshman year, and we were both setting up our music, you were all Huey Lewis Jr., Harry Connick Jr., and you're about to describe them so people who don't know them may understand why. You had a Living Colour album.
I absolutely loved their debut album, Vivid, but I'm going to probably talk more about their second album, Time's Up, because it came out as...
Maybe the first time this century someone's talking about Time's Up, because I don't know that.
So they played hard rock, 5 African-American guys playing hard rock, which at the time wasn't something you necessarily would get from, African-American musicians. You'd either get...
Really?
I don't know. Hard rock? Like, at least that I was aware of.
Okay, that might just be the towns we were in. I mean, I can't name some of them, but I feel like that's at the towns we were in. That's a closed-minded town thing that we both probably experienced.
It probably is. In fact, one of my things, the notes here, why did it matter to me? I put not Oneida.
Okay.
That's why it mattered to me. This is not music that I knew or heard of. This was not Liza Minnelli. No,
I don't think they do covers. But what was it then? Yeah. What was it that wasn't Oneida about it?
It was heavier rock than I was used to. I at the time probably called it thrash metal, although in retrospect it's not that.
No, but terms are weird. I agree. Like, I wouldn't call it that either, but I can see why you would say that. Plus, it's probably cool to think, and I have a favorite thrash metal band now.
I don't think I have a thrash metal band that I actually know.
No, but I'm saying, like, back then, like you're saying, it's something different. Like, yeah, why would it wouldn't just be rock because it was that different? It was on the radio, though. Is that how you first found them? Off the radio?
Yeah, Cult of Personality was what I first heard off the radio and more on MTV. It was the counterculture. I don't know if it was officially the counterculture, but it was my counterculture. Mm-hmm. It was not Oneida. It was not my mom's music. So it was my rebellion, I guess.
And how did you frame that? What was it? The fact that the music was the fact that what they're talking about and the rights they have to fight for as a minority were different. Like, what was it that made it your music?
It was a lot of that. I really latched on to what they were singing about and the rights and the racism and who they were as people and that kind of thing. Because it wasn't something I knew or experienced or thought of much before that.
Was it in the music you were hearing? Like, were there other musicians who were approaching and singing that you're listening to about similar issues?
Not before this that I can recall. I don't think Elton John did it much.
Did you listen to the whole album, or was it just hits off of it?
No, I listened to the whole album. I'm kind of talking about both of them because I listened to both of these albums a lot. I probably listened to Time's Up more in high school.
What's off of Time's Up? Why would I don't think I know that.
They had one of the hits off of that was Love Rears Its Ugly Head.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Which is kind of a bluesy, slower love song. And then a very slow love song was The Solace of You.
I don't know that either. No, I guess I don't know this album.
And then the title track, Time's Up. And there was a song, Type, which I really liked. And it was this kind of thing where it was like, it was all about stereotypes. And it was sort of the musical eye-opening for me of that sort of thing, because I didn't really get exposed to it as much as you would hope you would ahead of time. You know, it's like I'm hoping I'm doing a better job for my kids to open them up to different
Well, we grew up in small towns. I mean, my town was closed-minded. I mean, people wanted to be open-minded, and I think we were to the point that we can. But when you're living in a culture and surrounded by a culture of like-minded white people, it is hard to experience things. So it's interesting that music can do that. I think for me, I would be working very hard to identify with the music, almost to that pathetic, sad posing point where I'd be like, you don't know about the struggle of the black man. I do, because I have these albums. Why I did that voice just then, it makes me ashamed of myself, but that was my high school talking voice. I know it sounded weird, but I think there would have been an angle for that. Did you find that? Did you find that maybe you're also on a soapbox now in your community because this album made you know it? Yeah.
A little bit. This album and some of the others I listened to, kind of, because and the next one we'll get to later is a hip hop album. And so this sort of segued me into a genre of music and genres of music that, again, was not what my family grew up with, was not what my family was listening to. And so not off of this album, but there's a quote from from a rap album by the band KMD. I used to write it down all the time. It used to be on all my books. I did it in fancy lettering and put it in my locker. It was a quote about skin color. I'm going to try and remember it if I can. Pigment, is this a defect in birth or more an example of the richness of earth?
That's stuck with you as something.
That's stuck. Like as a kid growing up in a basically all white community and hearing something like that, and hearing about struggles that I have no experience with, no reference to, no knowledge of, it was. I think it hit me at a good time because it was before going off to college, before going to Boston, where you're exposed to more things and more people and more cultures. Had I not had at least a taste of it through music like this, I don't know what would have been different about that. And I'm glad that I had some of that beforehand.
I got a CD player my junior year, my birthday junior year, start of it. 1991 is when I got my first CD player and the first CD player in the house. So to really use it, I had to be the one to get CDs. Very first CD I ever got was Piano Man by Billy Joel. I think I borrowed someone's Doors soundtrack, but quickly after that, I went out and I was buying CDs, trying to accumulate CDs. And I think back then, one of the easiest ways to do that was, like a BMG music club, Columbia House Music Club. These clubs where for the price of a penny, or I think for this one, it's like the price of $1.99, you would get this huge catalog of little stamps of different album covers. And you'd pick out the 4, the 6, the 12, whatever it was that you were getting for this price. You'd lick the back of them, you put it on this card, and you'd mail it out. And they would show up 6 to 10 months later in this little cardboard box. And then each month, you'd be sending. People know what these things are, right? Do they still do them? I don't think they still do them. That's why I was explaining.
No, I don't think they do them anymore. And I think the people that listen to this podcast probably know what they are.
Well, because you do and I do and my folks do.
That's right.
Yeah, because we've all witnessed them. But I joined a CD club to build a collection. And I remember the first 4 CDs I got in the mail, because at the time I thought these were important. I got the Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey soundtrack.
Okay.
Timepieces, the best of Stevie Nicks.
Interesting.
Extremes Porno Graffiti.
Got it. I had that too.
And then the album that I'm going to mention, an important album, and an album that strangely had been around for 2 years before I finally got it. My favorite band of all time, The Replacements, Don't Tell a Soul was the 4th disc in there. It was their next to last studio album. It came out in 1989. And in 1989, they would have had a radio single with I'll Be You. That song, I'll Be You. And I talked about this on the Paul Westerberg episode, I think.
Yeah.
I heard I'll Be You on the radio, and it altered me. It struck me. It was the exact sound I needed to hear. It was the exact lyric I needed to hear. It was everything about this whole identity thing, music thing that I wanted, that I taped it off the radio because they would do this top 5 at 8, and it was part of that. So for 2 years, I had it on a cassette. I had I'll Be You by someone. I don't even think I had the name of the band. So that's how I knew the song. Yeah. So I went around for a while not knowing what the album looks like, not knowing what it sounded like. I think I had heard randomly people talking about the Replacements for a while. I went around thinking it was the Red Hot Chili Peppers because they both began with R. They were popular, but I had never seen the album. I had never heard the album. So when however it was that I realized that's the Replacements, when I saw it listed in this catalog for free CDs, that's what I ordered.
Did you know it had I'll Be You on it? Was that?
I did. So there must have been some research that yielded that. So maybe I saw it or something. But yes, I knew it had LBU. It was also, I think, they may have had, their last album may have been out by then too. I'm not sure. But that was the album that was listed. So yeah, I ordered it. And, it arrived with all the weight of that, because this was a song I carried with me for 2 years. Yeah. This album better live up to that.
Right.
This band, whoever they are, better live up to that. And at the time, opening that up, of those 4 CDs I mentioned, that's the only one I still have.
Okay.
And that's the only one I listened to of those 4, and I love it. This was a big album for me. Obviously, having LBU and its completion was a big deal, but the Replacements, and someday we'll talk about them. They're an amazing band to relate to at many different levels. And I think for me, getting into them with Don't Tell a Soul, which is sort of their safest album, their poppiest album, their quietest album, it made sense to me. Because it opens with Talent Show, which is this quiet song. It's not an arena rock anthem. It doesn't have some massively important guitar lick. It's just this little strumming song about playing some rinky-dink high school.
Yeah.
And it had that line in it, "It's the biggest thing in my life, I guess," is one of the lyrics in it. And that struck me right from the opening, because that song was what being artistic or an artist in high school was kind of all about. It was kind of about this, I do this here kind of thing. And it was right there in the fucking song. And so this album, especially the first half of it, played constantly like this 80s teen soundtrack to every scene I was in. This album is really aimed at high school kids, at least for me as a high school kid, not as a punk or as a stoner or as a goth, not even like Bastards of Young, which is that anthem of theirs I eventually got into. But this album was it was like this, non-drinking, neurotically depressed wannabe playwright's album, because it's all about disenchantment and it's all about rejecting the expected surroundings. And that's where I was at.
You couldn't have asked for a better album, it sounds like.
I don't think so. And it's just, because again, not a jock, not political, not even really a nerd. I didn't necessarily, I fit in okay at school, but I was also trying to avoid finding a place. I didn't want to fit in. I wanted to get out. And I think this album is kind of that thought process. It's that idea. I think it's really relevant to this high school mindset of just, we'll inherit the earth, but we don't want it, is a lyric. Aching to Be is a song. Anywhere is better than here is a song. It's a good high school album. And for me, that was great kind of before I discovered cigarettes, drinking, bookstores, and some other example that's not as cool as I'm meaning the sentence to be. But it's weird. I don't I listened to it today and I like it. It takes me immediately back to high school, and it struck me today why I liked it, everything I was saying, where it really is about not wanting to belong anymore where you are. And that made sense, and it's low-keyed. Their other albums are louder. Their other albums are snottier, brattier. Right. And I grew into that. And I grew into admire that. But this album, if Don't Tell a Soul wasn't so entwined in my high school DNA for those 2 years, really, if I'll Be You, the song, wasn't this mystical thing for 2 years that it was just hovering in my head as only the song, that once I found out who sang it, the band, I could get the album it's on, all these steps to whittle down. If all that hadn't embraced me for those years, I don't know if they would be my favorite band. I know I would have heard them and liked them, but I don't think it would have been the pursuit to find them and get to know them that it became. So this, I Don't Tell a Soul is important, but yeah, I don't listen to it that much.
And the way you're talking about this album, like none of my albums are like that. I mean, they're albums I listen to a lot, and they're albums that influenced me. I think probably the most influential one was probably the Harry Connick one, just because of the romanticism of his songs is something I tried to emulate, poorly, but tried. But the other two are just sort of different and rebellious. Although now that I'm thinking about it, maybe the third one had more of an effect on me than I know. On a subconscious level. The third one is 3 Feet High and Rising from De La Soul.
3, that's a magic number.
Okay, see, which I don't know. I mean, I know their hit.
What is their hit? What do you consider their hit?
Isn't it the Groove is in the Heart?
No, that's Delight.
You're right, Delight Soul.
I had that album.
Yeah,
I don't think I had it in high school.
I wish you had said it, because then I wouldn't sound so stupid.
No, you're probably thinking of Me, Myself, and I. Me, Myself, and I was their big hit.
Well, I mean, I don't know this album, so what is it?
It's a hip hop album. It's a rap album from the band De La Soul, which is 2 rappers and a DJ. Postadus, Dove, and Trugoy. No, Trugoy is Dove. It's weird because they all have these weird names. Mace is the DJ, or Maceo. Trugoy is Trugoy the Dove, but you could also call him Dove. The 2 guys that rap, you could also call them Plugs 1 and Plugs 2 because that's what their mics were plugged into.
You just got your own section of the show notes, by the way. Congratulations.
Thanks. But so they were a hip hop band from New York. This was their debut album, and it was a revelation for me because I knew a little rap before this, and I was starting to hear like gangster rap a little bit, but mostly all I knew was like Beastie Boys, MC Hammer. These guys were like they weren't like the real deal because I knew the real deal was the earlier rap from the 80s, but these guys were like, for me, taking it to a whole new level. They were their bit was, they kind of called it the Daisy Age. They were like the flower children of hip hop. They wore black medallions instead of gold chains. They were about, Africa and their homeland and not about making money. So that their raps were about being who they were as opposed to being the coolest cats, the best rappers, the Big Daddy Kanes or anything like that. They were just about being real and human and kind and funny and artistic. And I think that's why I was drawn to it. And that's what I was kind of thinking, maybe subconsciously, this album might have affected me more than I know. Because these guys were rappers, but these guys were going to high school. I mean, they were young. They were in their teens. 19, I think, was maybe how old.
So you found yourself a safe band that allowed you to say, I like
I guess. I don't know that it allowed me. I liked hip hop. I liked other hip hop bands beyond this, but they were all kind of safe. They were all sort of from the same circle, and they would name drop each other. And that's kind of how I would go know which band to pick up next. So like De La Soul would mention Tribe Called Quest or Third Base, and Third Base would mention KMD. So I'd get KMD, and they, so it was this.
Do you have a Third Base album? Because
I have both Third Base albums. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. You have all the Third Base albums. So if anybody needs to purchase a Third Base album, Bob can be reached at.
But I'll make you a copy. But I'm not going to sell you my Third Base album.
So you were listening to De La Soul in high school. You're listening to this album in high school. Were other people too? They had radio hits, right? People knew.
Yeah, I had a few friends. Probably they were probably more into hip hop than I was. A few of these friends that would, like, I had De La Soul, I had Third Base, I had KMD, and I think I had D Nice and maybe one other. I didn't have any Beastie Boys. I didn't get Beastie Boys until much later. But my other friends would have stuff like Big Daddy Kane and Kool Moe Dee and Public Enemy. I didn't get into that until later. So I had friends that listened to this, and I think they probably listened to De La Soul less. I don't know for sure. I'm probably remembering this wrong, but I feel like De La Soul for me was like a bigger band than the other ones for the other guys that were listening to hip hop.
But did you hear them first on the radio, or how did you get
This?
to
I
them?
would have. This would have been Yo MTV Raps. I saw their Me, Myself,
Okay.
and I video where they were in high school. They were being picked on by other quote unquote rappers, characters in their video. The rappers that were dressed like LL Cool J and Run DMC. And these guys were just in jeans and pastel shirts and they were just in class. They were in high school. And they were like giving presentations. And so like I immediately connected because I was in high school. They were giving their little presentation. So they'd get up in front of class and rap their verse about being themselves and not caring what other people think. They're going to be me, myself, and I. And it was awesome. It was funny. Perhaps my drive to be creative had some influence with this album because it's not just a cool album musically, but it's cool lyrically. It's smart. It's cool. It's comical. There's a lot of rap albums would do skits in between, and the skits in this one are kind of fun and funny, and their lyrics are funny. Their personas are kind of funny and quirky. They're like rap geeks in a way, and they were just creative and they wanted to be different, and they sang about being different. And that was something that I connected with, and maybe subconsciously that helped me try and decide where I wanted to go with my life and move into some sort of creative avenue and create, whether it's write or perform or sing or whatever.
So to wrap this up, because I think this has been great, but I think the episode ran a little long, so you don't have to get to my last one, but is there a through line? Like, obviously you were hearing more music than just these 3 albums in high school, but is there a through line or a thread or something that you could see as an umbrella that brings these 3 albums together, that they were at the time as important than other albums?
Yeah, I think it's, to me, I think it's pretty obvious that it's because they were different. They weren't what was playing on the radio. They weren't what my family listened to. They were I said it before, but I don't think it quite fits. But in my world, they were the counterculture.
None of the music you picked, to me, at first glance, fits where you're at with the music I think of you liking. Where, as friends, we were at when you got me into a lot of bands in college and after college because you had them, and none of that to me seems fed by these albums. And yet, I guess somewhere in there's something about you. These albums fed into you. You didn't get me into Harry Connick Jr.
I tried.
You didn't get me into Living Color. Yeah, it didn't work. You didn't get me into non-D Light. But it worked for you, and that's why these things are important. Yeah. I think when we get to, for me anyways, when I get to college and after college, all of a sudden it became so important about being identified with the music, being the one who found it, telling people like, you got to listen to this. This is why this is important, blah, 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 blah. But high school didn't have that. These things were sincere. These things were important. And these things, it sounds like for both of us, spoke to us. And that's good. And that resonates. And even though maybe some of the mentality and whatever seems a little lost on me now, these albums still do resonate. So I'm glad it's good that we talked about it. That was great.
That was fun.
That's the show every week. Visit 20popcast.com. That's the website where you can always find the most recent episode up and streaming, as well as all past episodes. There's also links to subscribe to it on iTunes, Google Play, Android devices. There's other things there. So check out the website. We're going to be working on that soon. You can always follow me. Follow me on Instagram. If you're going to follow me anywhere, follow me on Instagram @subcultist. I try to really use that and trying to put more stuff up there. You can like our show on Facebook. Bob, what can people do if they want to follow
They
you?
can find me on Twitter as well, @RHCanning. And if you enjoy music and talking about it and hearing about what I think of music, check out my mixtape blog, superultramegamix.wordpress.com, where I am actually...
What was that?
Super Ultra Megamix, one word, superultramegamix.wordpress.com.
superultramegamix.wordpress.com?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm listening to old mixtapes.
That was the people remember.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Great.
And the show notes.
Show notes, everybody. I don't know. Well, this fell apart as it often does, but it was pretty good. We'll be back next week with a big anniversary episode. This is episode 49, if these go up in the order I intended. Next week, another pointless anniversary. 50. You have anything to say to that?
No, I was waiting. It seemed like you were building to a good ending, so I was just going to stay silent so you could cut it nice and clean.
I know. Just people heard me last week end something. I think people like hearing you. And I know I don't always give you space, but I think people like hearing you. That's, so you want to end it?
Sure. I started it. Let me end it. Catchphrase.
Right. You could have your own too. You could have your own to use.
I don't have one.
What if that was it? I don't have one. That's how you ended every show.
I don't have
with puberty.
I don't have it. Stay cool, listeners. How about that? Stay cool, listeners.
That's it. Here's the 50 episodes of that now. Stay cool, listeners. To the die, baby, you'll realize. Baby, you'll see the funk inside of me. Baby, you'll see that rhythm.